What was the reason you last cried? Story 1. It was over the weekend. I was reaching out to a few different friends to see what they're up to, but everyone else had pre-existing plans. It hit me hard when I realized that I'm always making an effort to reach out, but I don't get the same in return. I do a lot of the work, and when I try to make plans, there's always something that comes up or they're too busy. Story 2. Lost my job and wasn't sure how I would find another. Spoiler, found another job but lost it after 6 months, got rehired by the same people who let me go, got let go again, and found a series of jobs before finding myself where I am now, making more than I've ever made before and good job security. Story 3. Over being lonely again, the remorse. My depression was the leading cause my partner left me, the uncertainty of the future with nobody on my side, and the fact that I am unable to start a convo when I want to talk to a woman, the lack of friends to go out because everyone is bond to family and kids. Story 4. I've cried 3 times today. Once for a colleague who put his dog to sleep yesterday. I've never met this dog, and my colleague works in another town. My sister is bringing her 18 months home, and I didn't know until she called this morning. Normally, no problem. However, I am driving 3 hours to get them from the airport, so I had to figure out toddler things this morning. I started our dog's dinner routine at breakfast. Oh, and a family friend who's a widow has a friend, and I want him to know he deserves happiness after his soulmate passed away a few years ago. 4 times today. I am 27 weeks pregnant. All of that happened before 8 a.m., and we have a baby shower this weekend. I'll probably cry another 10 times today and 100 tomorrow. Story 5. My older half-sister was visiting from California for Christmas. Hadn't seen her in about a year. She and my mom, her stepmom, got into a big argument and she left angrily. Didn't know if I would see her again. I was practically inconsolable, could not stop crying. Everyone has since made up now, but I still remember that night sometimes. Story 6. Because I'm a failure. I get downs in my life where I realize how bad my life is going and how I stop being consistent with working out, eating, work, hygiene, personal goals, etc. And these times usually give me a huge push to improve myself until I stop being consistent again and fail at all the plans and routines and goals I was supposed to follow. I'm in one of these downs, Arn, where I realize I'm ruining my life and I should change something about it. Except this time I've connected and remembered fully every single time I had this down. Then I gradually got better, only to stop and ruin all my effort in a matter of weeks, even reaching a worse point than where I started. It seems that no matter the plan, time, place, circumstance, I'm never going to stick to a solid plan, routine, or habit to fix my life. Sometimes I wonder where I would be right now, having been consistent with everything up to this point. Story 7. I was lying in a hotel bed in Paris and missed all my friends because I went there in a bit of a rush. Then I booked the train home in the morning. Then there was this moment the next morning on my way to Gare de Lyon. The streets were almost empty, and the sun came up right through the alley I was walking through while listening to Setting Sun by Pearl Jam. Those were tears of joy. Story 8. I was putting my almost 2-year-old son to bed last night, and sometimes like to sing to him. I was listening to a Taylor Swift playlist in my ear and Never Grow Up came on. I barely made it through singing that song to him without a full breakdown. I love my kids so much and love watching them grow, but man, is it bittersweet. The only reason I didn't break down is because he started singing Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes. Story 9. One Piece, the fan letter episode. It's an incredible story, and that episode did such a good job of showing how the Straw Hats affect the normal people in that world. How their pursuit of freedom and fight against oppression gives so much hope to people that they've never met. Story 10. Annoyed over the fact that my husband says no or denies everything I say. I can say the sky is such a beautiful blue today, and he'll reply, no, it's not really blue, it's blah, blah, blah. I can even say I feel sick. Well, you don't look sick, so I'm saying you're not. It's very distressing, and I'm now questioning my reality. Story 11. About a month ago when I felt helpless, my job has been super slow and I work on commissions, bills were piling up, and my car got towed 2 times in a matter of 6 months. And the cherry on it all, I lost my car keys, which I had to get replaced and reprogrammed. Basically the cost of a car payment for keys. I just felt like I was drowning. And unfortunately can't turn to anyone, but I was crying more. So because I know that lifestyle of going out and having fun caught up to me, thinking that all those fun nights are worth the temporary satisfaction. I was disappointed in myself for putting myself in this position, and I know that if anyone can dig themselves out, it would have to be me. That feeling of helplessness just got to me, BC. I know the potential I have, but I was consumed by all the influence around me. But if I want the life, career, and overall well-being, I have to change my lifestyle and take care of my mind and soul. Story 12. My mom has never truly loved me as much as I did or how I love my kids. She thinks she does, but her actions make it clear she in fact does not. It's a hard pill to swallow when you're in your mid-30s and spent your entire life thinking you're close and only to realize that she only liked having someone, could have been anyone, to vent to and treat as her free therapist. To realize that she hasn't ever deeply thought about how her actions and behaviors affected her children, and to this day, hasn't taken any responsibility for her role in the demise of our relationship. Story 13. It's recent news, but I got into trouble and got arrested and lost my job. It was a non-violent crime to the extent of felony level. I sometimes think I'm a lowlife and it could have been avoided. I thought I knew myself, but I let my intrusive thoughts win, so I guess I don't know myself very well. Going to therapy to reevaluate myself and making some changes. Story 14. Being hospitalized for 2 weeks because of blood clots found in my lungs. Honestly, that part didn't bother me, but I had to step away from school and I'm a high school senior. It feels like I'm not going to get accepted to any colleges because my grades dropped because of my absences. I had to step away from school junior year for a separate medical condition which impacted my grades. When I was in the hospital, I later got diagnosed with lupus, and that's when I started breaking down in front of my doctors. I guess I just kept everything bottled up, and lupus was the tip of the iceberg. I'm struggling applying to colleges and struggling to keep up with schoolwork from home. I've been out of school for a month and a half now. Story 15. I've been crushing on a girl for a while and we went on a few dates recently, but due to the dynamic of her current situation, I just know that I can't enter a relationship with her because it would not work for me. And it really sucks because we've been having an absolute blast with each other, and we have both expressed how much we like each other, and it could be a phenomenal relationship. I just don't see it working out that way. And so I need to let her know that despite the fact that I really want her, I can't keep going on, and we have to be content with just being friends instead. I've cried about it nearly every day for a week. Sometimes you just meet the right person in the wrong situation. Story 16. I was leaving the people I loved the most for a 3-month solo trip to Japan. I was inconsolable, but I'm thankful this is my only reason to cry rivers. There was a time, not too long ago actually, where I'd cry often because I didn't want to be here at all anymore. Things go get better. Story 17. I work in pest control, but I'm leaving my job. I was telling one of my customers, a nice old lady who I've been doing service for a little over a year, and she started crying. Long story short, I started doing her service a week or 2 after her husband died. She was in a bad place, so I would always schedule her in the morning and have coffee with her before I did my service. When I told her I was leaving, you mentioned that her husband died, her kids all live in different states, and I have been one of the only consistent people in her life. It was heartbreaking. I ended up giving her my personal phone number and told her to call me if she needed anything. Story 18. I'm getting married, and we can't decide where would be best to live and what is best for the kids. His son lives almost 2 hours from where I live. He currently lives 1.5 hours from me. My daughter is in high school and in a specialized program to graduate with an associate's along with her high school diploma. He would lose 4 days with his son every month if he moved to us, and my daughter would lose her dual credit program and her whole support system if we moved to any other school district in the area. I love both of our kids, and it breaks my heart that one will get hurt either way. Story 19. This is maybe pathetic, but we had to put down our dog about 3 years ago. First dog my wife and I ever had. Well, since then we have gotten 2 more rescue dogs, and as dogs go, they are pretty good, but still require vet visits. I took one of them to the vet a few weeks ago, and for the first time since we had our first dog put down, they put me in the room it was done in. I tried to keep it together, but I couldn't. I was a little embarrassed when the vet came in for the routine checkup and felt I had to explain, so I did. She apologized profusely, and I said it is not her or the clinic's fault, and it's just one of those things. She gave me a hug and said she remembered my dog, even called him by name, which I hadn't said, so I knew she wasn't lying. Everyone there loved him because he was such a good boy every visit, and she has been all of our dogs' vet for 16 years now. Story 20. I cry almost every day. Sometimes I just want to wake up with puffy eyes because it makes my hooded eyes look better and also make the green colors pop up. So, I just make myself cry before sleeping. It's been a beauty and mental health routine for about 12 years, and it relieves my stress well. Story 21. Divorce. I'm finding out in many of my memories the wife and kids didn't respect me or care too much about me. I thought many times during the marriage they would be better off without me, that I should leave. Turns out I should have. No respect, no one listened. I was ignored unless I was a complete asshole. I shouldn't have shared my feelings about things because that's why she finally said she wanted a divorce. I was destroyed, and my family is telling me how miserable I was in the last few years. I still feel like a horrible person that is unlovable, but at least things are quiet now. Story 22 was watching Ghost Whisperers EP3 while eating my lunch a while ago. In that episode, Melinda visited her grandma in a retirement home, and she asked her grandma how could she knew the difference between ghosts and humans. She and her gran shares the ability of seeing earth-bounded spirits. Grandma told her that she'd learn to feel it the moment she looked at them. She was founded for a second, and then she told her grandma she could feel it while looking at her, and that's when she realized she was already talking to her grandma's spirit. Her grandma died in her sleep. Cried my eyes out for good 10 minutes. Didn't know it was the only thing I need to release all of my pent-up emotions. Story 23. Last week. I'd just gotten out of the hospital after a pretty big surgery. An old friend of mine I only see about once a year drove a couple of hours to surprise me with a stuffed animal and a card. We used to see each other weekly when we were younger. We're super close. I read the card and we hugged and I started crying. Story 24. My husband watches movies and I sit on the couch next to him and read books. Last week, he rewatched Avengers Endgame and despite only watching out of the corner of my eye, made me ugly cry repeatedly at every heart-wrenching moment. Meanwhile, he watches me scramble for the Kleenex box at my elbow dry-eyed. Story 25. Every now and again, I get small pangs, or slight attacks, if you will, where I'd miss my cheating ex-wife and the inhumane way she left, waited until I was literally in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean on a small boat, sent an email at midnight, and groomed my then 4-year-old to get used to another man. I don't miss her, but I miss the woman I fell in love with and promised my life to. Story 26. I am terribly overwhelmed with the weight and requirements of existing. Specifically, the fact it feels like I'm just here to suffer. I live with chronic pain from a snowboarding accident from 2016. I am partially paralyzed, so I can't even do things I enjoy because my body physically can't perform. That's on top of all the things most of the rest of us deal with. Barely able to scrape by financially, even though I make more than my parents did, and they were able to afford to live. Even though all I do is work, and that's just for 2 days off to usually work more on those days, I'm a salary employee, so I don't ever get OT, which burns even more for me because is even the point? Mental health has been jacked for my entire life, essentially, and I feel broken all the time. I am my own enemy and spend most of my time trying to fight the urge to just end it all because my dog simply wouldn't understand. So yeah. Just thinking about how all of this makes life not fun, and I feel like my entire existence will be some form of suffering until I'm laid against the pine, had me pretty messed up last night. Story 27. My mom bought this lovely dress for herself and she gave it to me because it didn't fit her. She hung it up on the doorframe and I got so upset I cried, and I touched it, then sobbed more. I bought her a different size and, to be fair, I live 3 hours away from them. Story 28. This is going to sound funny, but for the first time in like 14 years, I cried at the end of the Green Mile movie. Something about John Coffey being led to the electric chair while the grown-ass guards are crying made me weak. Them knowing he is innocent, but there is nothing they can do. Story 29. I had a hysterectomy last week, and yesterday was the first day I got out of the house and went to a store. I took it as easy as possible, but I felt like when I got home, I took meds and laid down, but my head was splitting. I cried because I wanted my husband to hug me. He was downstairs with the kids, but I don't know. I was just overwhelmed and sore. It seems like a silly reason, but that's the reason for the last time I cried. Story 30. I cry all the time. It's definitely a given every week before my cycle. Or it could be about a movie, a heartwarming reel, my kids demanding one too many tasks from me of the day. Honestly, though, I believe the last time I cried, they were happy tears. I was laughing so hard, I cried. It's wild hearing some of you say 3 months ago, or thinking of a recent traumatic event, LOL. Crying is a very nurturing, welcomed release in my world. Story 31. My granny, she started to show signs of dementia for a little bit now. The other day I visited her with my mom and she looks at me and says, about my mom, "This is my daughter, isn't she beautiful?" Clearly not recognizing who I am. In the moment I handled it, but when I got home, I had to cry a little. Her and I have always had a special connection. The whole family says that I've always been her favorite person. So for some gosh darn reason, I didn't think it would be me she didn't recognize first. Story 32. The last time I cried was tears of joy. I had a really chaotic and traumatic childhood and early teen years, and my life has finally reached a point of comfort and peace. I was reflecting on this one morning and just felt so overjoyed and thankful for where I'm currently at that it brought me to tears. Story 33. The last time I cried was just a couple of days ago. I've been dealing with a lot from school, and it's been really overwhelming. I felt excluded by my friends, which has made me question my worth and feel like everyone else is better than me. It's a tough feeling, and sometimes it feels like the world is against me. Reading through everyone's responses, I truly sympathize with what you're all going through. If anyone needs someone to talk to or just wants to vent, my DMs are always open. I believe that even though things are hard right now, we can get through this together. It's important to support each other, and I know that things will get better eventually. Story 34. My youngest kid, thankfully a teen, is in the hospital for inpatient chemo and treatment for leukemia that he was diagnosed with last week. I've cried a lot in a week, but I think the last one is how I'm scared to order restaurant food for him, not trusting their cleanliness. I'm terrified of ordering him something from DoorDash, and he gets a foodborne illness while we're in here for a month. The McDonald's onion recall does not help this. Story 35. I cried with frustration at seeing people who didn't have half my academic ability earning more money and more opportunities than me. What frustrated me most is that these people are only where they are because they are relatives of someone. How am I, a simple resident of Baisata Fluminense, going to succeed in life like this? It's exhausting. Story 36. Mostly just feeling lonely. Thought I'd have met the love of my life by now, but I've realized I have terribly low self-esteem, so I don't put myself out there that often. To lie awake in the dark feeling like no one loves or cares about you is a profound sadness that brings about that sharp pain deep within your chest. Story 37. In therapy, I finally admitted that I don't love one of my parents after claiming to love them out of obligation for years. I love them because it's my mom, dad, grieving the fond memories of them because I don't think I can have a future of fond memories with them as a grandparent to my future kids, and it hurts my heart so much. Story 38. I'm an engineering director in the aerospace field. Due to executive mismanagement, we had 2 layoffs and a 20% salary reduction across the board last summer. I lost one half of my team due to layoffs and people jumping ship because they can't make the reduced salary work. The workload hasn't changed for my team. Expectations haven't loosened. I care about my team. I try to help them and fight off the executive wolves. I try to speak logic and reason to BD, putting in 80 hours a week to help catch up and alleviate my team's pain. I just see the fire and passion empty in my team's eyes now, and it breaks my heart. I don't know what to do. They are all such good engineers and employees, every one of them. This company doesn't deserve them. I don't deserve them. I should tell them all to quit and get something better, and some of them can't, some of them won't. I just don't know what to do anymore. Story 39. I read something about how flamingos lose their pink when they have kids and then it slowly comes back. I don't know if that's true or not, but the dam of exhaustion and anxiety and emotion that's been filling me to the brim since I had my baby a few months prior burst, and I cried alone at my work desk at 8 a.m. for about a half hour. It felt good to get it out. Story 40. Last month, both of our dogs were bit by a snake while they were outside. We didn't realize until an hour or so when we left them in. On nice days, we leave them out for a bit longer. We brought them to the vet. The younger, bigger dog made it, but the older one, Scruffy, didn't. I was fine until I went to put his body in the car. It hit me like a brick and I just let it all out. It was rough. Story 41. Guilt for leaving an abusive partner I was in love with, even though I know I needed to. My friends and family were relieved, but it still feels like I betrayed the person I was supposed to protect and help and understand, even though they will never admit or recognize that they were abusive toward me or how their actions affect others. The good times we had make it hard. They are very upset with me and obviously struggling. Story 42. The family dog is geriatric, but for several years it didn't impact her. She had the same level of energy and activity she had as a puppy, even when she turned 13, until this year. Not only has her age finally caught up to her, but she also got diagnosed with cognitive heart failure that's very recently progressed. She's been around for almost half my life. I know it's coming, likely even end of this year or sometime next year, but I'm not ready to let her go. Story 43. I had a long day at work and wanted to go play with my kid, too. I went into the kitchen and he says, "Not you, Dada. Not done working, go away." He takes my hand and leads me back to the computer. He rejects me like that a lot, but this time it broke me. I left to get groceries and cried on the way to the store. I know he's 2 and doesn't really mean it, but it hurts to love someone so much and get ruthlessly rejected almost daily. Story 44. I was overwhelmed. My toddler was having a meltdown and refused to get in the car, and that little dude is strong, so no forcing it. I needed to get him to nursery so I could get to work on time and I could see the clock ticking. I finally bribed him into his car seat and I noticed he'd wet himself, so I needed to take him out the car again and back into the house to change his clothes and back out where he threw the tantrum all over again, and I was out of bribes. I decided to let him calm down, and I'll just sit in front and breathe through it. Turned on the car and the engine light came on, and I just used all my savings fixing the boiler, and it felt like one cosmic joke. I just sat there and sobbed. Story 45. I lied to my boyfriend for the first time and he found out. It was a reason to lie and I was disappointed and upset with myself. What makes it worse is he was super understanding and begged me not to be upset with myself. He didn't deserve it. I also worry it's created a small disconnect that I will have to work to rebuild. Story 46. My ex-girlfriend, who I still have feelings for, put her head on my shoulder while she was drunk, so was I, and whispered, "I miss you." Her and I are not compatible in a relationship. It can't happen. Doesn't mean it didn't shatter me when I got home that night and crawled into bed alone. Story 47. I had been working at this job for a year, after some just hard life threw me. This woman that works there, I started to become friends with after a while. Always looked forward to working with her. Well, we've done quite a lot together since I've started there. Have well been a lot closer. On my birthday, she chins me a wrapped gift. No one has given me a birthday or Christmas gift that wasn't just a gift card in years. What she gave me was the most thoughtful thing someone has honestly ever gotten me. I broke down, hard. She's a true friend. People are noticing how much time we spend together now. I hope we get to spend much more. Just a wonderful person. Story 48. Yesterday on the bus, I was scrolling through TikTok and an One Piece edit came up. At first I teared up because, well, it's One Piece. Those who've seen it know what I'm talking about. Then I started thinking that for the first time ever, I have a partner to whom I could share One Piece with. And that's a huge thing for me. She cares that I get to do my own things and that I have my own interests. And One Piece is something huge for me, and to think that I could share that with her and not be ridiculed because that's so stupid. It's for kids, or you're for watching this, is absolutely more gold. Story 49. I saw that a woman recently used the game Roblox to try and get a 10-year-old to murder a newborn. She tried to get him to burn her with scalding water and drown her, eventually managing to get the 10-year-old to drop the baby on a hard floor, severely injuring her and probably messing the boy up mentally. My baby is about to turn 1 year old, and ever since he was born, I cannot stand these kinds of news stories. All I think about is my baby and family and all the joy he brings to my life. And I get so angry I cry because children are treasures of innocence and joy, and I just want to help them all and smite the people who hurt them. So I cried like 2 days ago. Story 50. Man, I cry all the time. Last time was yesterday. My husband has severe PTSD from being a pandemic nurse. He started a program that has helped him make leaps and bounds of progress. Anytime he overcomes it to do something, I cry. Every day he feels a little warmer. I cry. I've never been this happy for another person, and so I cry. Lol. Story 51. Everyone here has really sad stories. I last cried because of a novel. After a lot of hardships and near-death situations, the main character finally managed to get a happy ending with his new family. It made me sad thinking about the possible stories after the ending. There was something in earlier chapters that talked a bit about the main character's future descendants. I really wanted to know more about them and the future of that world. I cried in bed wishing I was there to experience that universe with those characters. Story 52. A few years ago, pretty much everything in my life was going wrong. I was recently divorced, my dad was dying, my career was floundering, one that I entered after having to earn multiple advanced degrees, adding to the shame, and I could barely afford my dump of a house, even though I was working 60-plus hours a week. All of this happened during COVID lockdowns, so I essentially went through all of this alone, which I know is not a unique situation. I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've cried in my life since I reached my teens, in 30s now, but all of this sort of hit me at once, while drinking alone, of course. So I just bawled for about 10 minutes. That was in 2021, I think. Things are going much better now. Story 53. Being lonely. I am married, but I feel that I have no friends at all. At least no one I really connect with. I'm kind of always the background friend, the last resort friend. And I do so much for other people, but people don't usually do stuff for me. And when I'm at home alone, and I just feel the soul-crushing weight of being alone, no one to talk to, and having to sit with my feelings. It's not easy. I have tried to make friends, but I've always had this problem. And I recently lost my childhood pet and my uncle in the same week, and hardly of my friends reached out. Oh, and they all forgot my birthday, LOL. So I was going through it, and I have been for a while. Story 54. My acne. I am 30 years old. Never struggled with acne as a teenager. About 8 years ago it started. Only last year did it finally clear up, and now 6 months ago it's back in full force. I don't know what to do. Nothing in my lifestyle has changed to cause this. No other grown-ass adult I see on the daily has this problem. I don't want to go anywhere or do anything because of it. I really can't take it anymore. Story 55. My relationship is in trouble because of the stress of having a mentally ill child and another extremely resentful child. It's pulling me apart as a person, and my spouse is just about over it. There's pent-up resentment and anger in both of us, and we aren't connecting anymore. It's excruciating, and I'm not sure we'll make it. I cry driving home from work and walking my dog late at night. They're both quiet times that I can really boo-hoo cry like a cartoon character. Story 56. I was pushing myself so hard at work, and I finally reached the point where I was burned out and hated my job and completely broke down. I'm now finishing my first week at my new job, and it's the first time I've ever worked from home. It's going great so far, and although it sucks to get to the point of hating my job, I'm glad it happened because I would have never started my job search if I was complacent at my old job. Story 57. Because in my dreams, I'm allowed to process the ever-mounting grief I keep experiencing, and so I usually wake up crying. I'm not mad about it. I'm convinced that crying is a necessary process. I'm pretty sure it's removing toxins. And if that isn't a literal fact, then I reckon it's at least a metaphorical one. I've spent so long suffering and so long throwing all my energy into learning how to ameliorate that suffering through therapy and self-help and learning to look after myself. That's exhausting enough as it is. And then I have to contend with the fact that life doesn't stop just because I have growing to do. I still have to keep all these plates spinning. So I have to grow in a way that doesn't send those plates crashing to the ground. For me, that means focusing on strategies that revolve around regulation, acceptance, distress tolerance, stoicism. Having to keep my together when falling apart feels like it would be the more cathartic move, feels so restrictive and inauthentic. But constantly practicing therapy exercises now has me in a place where I can't cry even when I want to. Used to be that an episode of Bluey would have tears streaming from my eyes. And now I stare at the screen and feel numb and like my heart doesn't work anymore. Why would it, if I'm consciously training it to be unaffected, to exhibit no reaction that would cause me to lose my job or my child? What I'd really like to do is check myself into a mental health facility for like 6 weeks and let myself be a mess under supervision, and then do the mental work in the order and at the frequency that is currently too difficult to work around those spinning plates. But if it's between crashing the plates I have now so I can spin new ones later, and pushing myself to the brink on the off chance I can keep these plates, I have to try. They're everything to me. So I guess for now, I cry because I sleep, and for now, I'm okay with that. Story 58. Yesterday was a really hard drop-off at daycare for my 2-year-old baby. Normally, it's run off to play with a quick hug, maybe a kiss, but yesterday there was screaming, crying, "Mama, no, don't go." I know in that situation it's best for me to just go, so I did. But I cried all the way to work, feeling like the worst mom in the whole wide world. I emailed her teacher just to check in after I was at work because even though I knew it was fine in my mind, my mama heart just needed to be double sure. I apologized to her today and she said it was totally fine. That was a rough one, but that they had walked over to the door to wave bye to me and my baby was already okay and had a good day as their happy, normal self. Today I got a hug and a kiss and a happy wave before the run off to play. Kids. Story 59. I was on my first ever solo trip. Decided to go to Rome for 5 days as I've always wanted to see the city and the Colosseum. And I love Italian food, so figured it'd be a safe first trip. I was stood at the foot of the Colosseum around midnight after sampling some of the wine bar's wines, so felt a little tipsy, and I just looked up at it and got very emotional. 4 months ago, I became single and had a real hard time finding myself again. I was crying every single day for weeks and still crying regularly for a couple months. Some days it was real hard to push myself to do the things I wanted to do or even things I should do, self-care, work. So standing there, having gotten there entirely with my own money, my own organization and my own independence felt like a moment of self-validation. I am okay, I am independent, and I can take care of myself. They were tears of joy and self-acceptance. Story 60. Yesterday, I had to talk to my spouse, who I am in process of divorcing, on the phone about a car insurance issue. He is so different, angry, aggressive, yelling about how he hates me and I ruined his life. If he had shown even remotely that amount of passion toward me before, maybe, just maybe, we wouldn't be where we are now. Story 61. 2 things. A guy I liked and thought we had a connection with turned out to not want to pursue things with me because he didn't think I was his type. He went on to get into a relationship with his one that got away, who looks a lot like me according to a work friend. At work, I wanted what they call the weekend package, 6p6 a Friday, Sunday all the time. For school, she gave it to someone else once it opened up while telling me I couldn't get it due to the pay cost. Story 62. I'm recently married, so everyone's question to me is when I'm having kids with my now husband. I got diagnosed with a condition that makes it nigh impossible to carry my own children. Every time someone asks, I see the children I maybe should have had when I was younger. I didn't know I was wasting my chance for pregnancy at 19. I've taken to bluntly saying, I cannot carry children because of the number of times people have asked. And yes, we will be adopting, and I'm excited to start that journey in the future. It's just one more choice that got taken away from me, and I'm tired of my choices being taken away. Story 63. So much sadness in many of these responses, desperation too. Unhappiness is part of life, but some people definitely get the short straw when it comes to good fortune. I don't have any answers except to hope that people can take some comfort in reading these and knowing that they are not alone in struggling. I am old now, and yes, I weep for those people in times long gone, and have bitter regrets for mistakes and squandered opportunities when I made bad choices. We do the best we can with the hand we are dealt, but we are all really just dancing in the dark trying to find our way. I wish for courage and peace of mind for all those who suffer and struggle with life. Story 64. I had to give up my dog to someone because I was unemployed for a while, and no one else in my family could take care of him. For employment reasons, I had to move cities and go in office, so it was really difficult to make the decision. I still miss and cry out about that. He is really happy at the new place, which is great. Story 65. Last month, had to put my best friend, dog, of 11 years down due to a very sudden illness. I cried for a few solid hours because I always had this image in my head of doing a grand exit for him. Take him to his favorite beach for one last nap, take him for one last truck ride, and a steak, and our usual cuddle on the couch after dinner. I cried so hard as I felt I let him down. Story 66. Was watching an anime about a cat and dog. The owner was reminiscing about her dog that passed away. They showed him in old age and how he struggled to walk. It was in Japanese, but I still lost it. I don't want to think about our dog getting sick and having to be put down. It also reminded me of my cat that we had to let go years ago, and in hell, I was a mess a few days ago. Story 67. My last cry was related to work. Stress. I am currently working as a HS teacher. I have burnout. Thank God the school year ends soon. My country, third world country in South America, is facing huge social, economical, and political issues. So sometimes I have anxiety and feel so sad and discouraged, hopeless, want to live elsewhere. I have European nationality, Spain as well, so I will try next year. Any advice? I feel lost lately. Story 68. This is actually the second to last time I cried. The last one was a bit too personal, so I'll keep that one to myself out of respect. The most recent time was while watching a show on Netflix. There was a scene where a teenage girl admitted to taking the blame for a car accident her mom caused while driving under the influence. She did it because she was terrified her mom would be arrested, and she couldn't imagine life without her. That really hit me. While my mom doesn't have those kinds of issues, I feel a similar way about how much I rely on her support. Story 69. I woke up crying when I dreamed about seeing my dog again. We said goodbye to him 2 years ago, had him since he was 6 weeks old, and he made it to a month after he turned 18. I was crying in my dream and woke up weeping, a tear-soaked pillow and my girlfriend trying to calm me down. Story 70. It was a song that came on while I was driving. I had been fighting with my longtime SO, and it made all of it come to a head, and I could not hold it in anymore. It kind of cleared my thoughts and gave me a release I guess I needed. I never really cry, so it kind of came out of nowhere. Stress does crazy things to our brains, doesn't it? Story 71. 2 weeks ago, one of my friends from school lost her 1-month-old son due to health complications. Earlier this week, a different friend from school lost her 20-year-old son in a car accident. I'm at that weird stage where friends can have newborn and adult children, depending on how early or late they started. A couple of days ago, another friend told me she has cancer. It's in advanced stages, it has spread, and the prognosis isn't great. I just went home and had a private cry session. I hate seeing terrible things happening, especially to people I care about, and that was a lot for a 2-week span of time. Story 72. I've cried several times since I moved out for college. I feel so alone here, and I haven't been able to make a single friend. I'm only an hour from home, and I've been back several times, but I just miss it so much. This place just doesn't feel like home to me. My depression and anxiety have returned after 2 years of having them under control. I have a phone appointment to try to start getting counseling later today. Story 73. The last time I cried was because I watched a really emotional movie that hit home for me. It was about loss and the struggle of moving on, and I felt so connected to the characters that it brought up a lot of my own feelings. I ended up just letting it all out, and it felt surprisingly good to release those emotions. Story 74. About 4 days ago, my brakes went out on my car. I got it home just fine. Can't afford to fix it, but I can wait a couple of weeks and share my wife's car in the meantime. So I'm sitting at home and notice an odd smell. I go to the basement to investigate and realize my main drain is clogged and there's water everywhere. So now I have 2 expensive problems. I break down in frustration, and after a few minutes of calming down, I call Roto-Rooter, who is currently in my basement fixing my problem while I type this. The car remains Ed for the foreseeable future. Story 75. I was with my son, and I had come out of hospital a few weeks before. I was still recovering, but fatherhood doesn't wait. He came to hug me and then bit my shoulder really hard, and it hurt so much I just started to cry. I was so exhausted and frustrated and just fed up with everything. He, 16 months, realized something was wrong and came and gave me a hug and tried to pat me, as that's what I do to him when he's crying. Story 76 watched The Wild Robot with my fam, literally sat and cried as the movie progresses and hits parents right in the heartstrings of having to let go of things as the kids grow. Absolute gut punch. I look over. My lady is bawling her eyes out. We see each other crying and snuggle our feet together for comfort. I'm thankful I have a partner who sees things emotionally like I do so often. Story 77. I have anger issues and it's persisted since my early childhood. It's made me violent and prone to lashing out. And yesterday when I was changing my oil on the car, I got frustrated. I had the wrong tools out and it was dark. My dad was with me and I was yelling and throwing things around like a whirlwind. It wasn't at him, but I can't stop feeling terrible that he might think it was him. I apologized 100 times. And I can only work on getting better. Story 78 last night. I'm 3 months postpartum with 2 under 2, and my husband, in my opinion, overreacted to a situation and yelled at me for something very minor in front of family. I ended up crying for a while after he went to bed, contemplating the future of my marriage, and then I spent the night on the couch. I know he's under immense stress too, but just feeling like I can't do anything right lately. Story 79. I recently moved to a different country. I'm from South America and moved to Asia, and I miss my family, but I don't want to come back there because I almost got killed twice in that awful country, and I promised myself to not die in South America. My family is coming next year, so I cry every day since I got here because I fear something will happen to them as long as they stay there.